My name is Tom Richard. Hope you don't mind if I sit. I am the Executive Director for the State Committee for Social Workers. I also am the Executive Director for the State Committee of Dietitians, the Office of Endowed Care Cemeteries, and the Interior Design Council. So I wear a lot of different hats and have to understand and know a lot of different rules and statutes. You're all master social worker candidates? Okay, and then are you all in your final year? No?
I'm not.
Okay, okay. I like to start these off with just fielding questions. Every question you might have with regard to your profession, it's open season on me, and I'll try to answer all those. I've got a really boring PowerPoint. If you make me, I'll get into that. But I like to start off and just answer questions. I'll answer one that if nobody has it here, it'd be a little unusual, but this is a smaller group. One of the questions about all students want to know is, let's say they've had something happen in their past. We require fingerprinting. So if there's an MIP or a DUI or shoplifting, I'll show my age. I call it something somebody did when they're young and dumb. Just fess up to it on the application. There really isn't, I don't know that I've seen anybody be declined for that, with the exception of if it's a felony. And then there's a 10-year period by statute between, we cannot license that. So anyway, a lot of people are too shy to ask that questions because they're questions you all have about anybody going to work here, or are they going to a different state?
I was wondering about if there was dual licensure for Kansas and Missouri.
It's not dual. We each have our own, but it's no problem to be licensed in both. If you are moving out of state, every state has their own rules. They have their own boards, and I would suggest going to the other state's website and finding out their requirements. For the master level, we call it licensed master social workers. Some of them call them licensed general social workers. Some of them just call them licensed social workers. But they are all on a website called ASWB.org. There's a link to every state there and the licensing bureau, or whatever you want to call it, in every state. We all require the same exams, so they're not state specific. California is a little bit different. I think they still have a vocal oral exam on top of the written, but we all use the same one. We all have the same criteria, that you have a MSW from an accredited school, of which MU is one.
Can you just say that the exams are the same nationwide?
Yes, they're not state specific.
Okay.
And you can take them. We don't care if you're in another state when you take the exam and come here. It doesn't matter. Reciprocity between the states for the master level is really pretty easy. When you get into the clinical level, then it gets a little more complicated, because a lot of states have different requirements of supervision than we do. And again, every state's kind of different. We're all working towards reciprocity and ease of mobility, but truth is that's going to take years, because every state's fighting rules, they're fighting statutes to try to make these changes. Yes?
Do you have to wait a certain amount of time before, like, say I get licensed in Missouri, and then 7 months later I move to Kansas?
No, that shouldn't matter.
Okay.
Yep. Yes?
I'm a first-year student, so I just want to make sure I have the basics set. So after graduation, within 60 days, we sit for the LMSW?
Your choice. No, you can take the exam anytime for the master level. You can take it up to 60 days prior to graduation. But you can wait 5 years if you want to, and then take it.
Okay. And then there's 3,000 hours of supervision before we can sit for the
Right. And some states want 4,000. If one is working full time, they'll get the 4,000 hours in 2 years here. But some states, and this going back to the reciprocity, if you know you're going to be going to another state, there might be certain courses that you have to have from your program here in order to get licensed there. So you just check it out. You know, if you know you're going to Kansas, make sure you have the number of hours if there's specific coursework they want to have that. You're going to make me go into this thing, aren't you?
4,000. You can get 4,000 hours?
We use a formula that most states have something similar. If you're working a 40-hour week, you'll end up with over 4,000 hours of experience after 24 months. We require at least 3,000, but we also require 24 months. So we require both here. Okay, I warned you. I'm going to have trouble seeing this. So I'm just, pulling it down or clicking it? I already screwed it up. So I'm just clicking it. We've got everything online. As I said, we do the fingerprinting. We have to have the official transcripts from the school. I think Mizzou, if you graduate in December, I might be wrong here. I know there's at least one school where the Board of Curators has to go over and approve it or something like that. And I have run into this before. I might be getting it confused with WashU, but one of them, if it's like a December graduation, they don't meet for like 4 to 6 weeks after that. And then the transcripts come out. So, but we have to have the official transcripts. We don't want them electronically, which is the problem sometimes, but the applicant, yes.
Can we obtain those from can we obtain the transcripts ourselves and mail them in, or
In a sealed envelope from the school. Make sure it stays sealed though. It's doing this thing. These are our requirements. We need a master's of social work. Every year I talk to some people that it shouldn't apply with you all, but that get their like a BSW from a school, and then they get an online course that's not accredited by the CSWE, and it does them no good for any state. And they'll say that the program told them it was accredited, and I don't know who accredited it, but not the CSWE. These are the levels of exam. We do offer a licensed advanced macro social worker level. We don't have any. It's administrative. I will try to discourage you from doing that because there's a very limited number of states that recognize that level, whereas we all do the clinical. The advanced macro, you have to have supervision, same amount of supervision that the clinical does. It's just in a different field. It's in the administrative area. So if you know that's where you're gonna live, then you may go for that, but there's nothing that level can do that an LMSW can't do. So I don't see any benefit personally in it. And I don't know how much longer they're going to offer it. There's in the neighborhood of 14,000 people take the clinical exam every year. And last year, like 240 took the advanced generalist. So I don't know how long they can maintain it.
Say 14,000.
roughly, and about 12,000 take the master level. Of probably particular interest to you all, about 80% pass the first time.
That was my both of them, both the masters and clinical.
It's a little lower on the clinical. It's like 78 or somewhere in there. However, I don't want to discourage people that might not pass it the first time, and the second time pass rates drop through the floor. Oh, gosh, repeat test takers just it's below 50.
So it sounds like we should study harder.
Probably. These are the things we need if you want to take the exam early. It's up to 60 days prior to graduation. There was a lot of discussion on this. A lot of the people on the committee felt you all had enough on your minds right before graduation and finals, etc. Then this would just be something else added on to it. But there are some instructors on our committee now. They do recommend not waiting too long to sit for the master's level exam because it'll be fresh in your mind coming out of school. Yes. Well, this.
So can we start the application and get our fingerprints going, send it all in, but actually not graduate? We'll have to wait on the official transcript.
You may do that if you'd like.
Like it doesn't all have to be signed.
No. No. We hold fingerprints for us are good for a year. If it stretches beyond that, then you're going to have to be printed again.
That kind of brought up a good point. So if we sat for 6 years prior, but we don't have our
Mm-hmm.
we turn them in afterwards.
Yes.
Okay.
We won't issue the license until we have them.
Okay.
So, but we'll let you go ahead and take it. That way, if you have a job lined up, you can start immediately then, if they require a license. Now, and I don't know if I've got a few different slides or programs. The level of master social worker in Missouri is what's under what we call the Title Act. You have to have the license to call yourself a licensed master social worker, but you don't have to have it to work as one. The clinical license is a practice act. You have to have that license to be able to practice clinically, or you have to be licensed as a master social worker under registered supervision with my office, working towards a clinical license. So if an employer doesn't need you, doesn't require the license as a master social worker, you certainly don't have to do it. It probably wouldn't hurt you and might, open up more doors, but it's not something you have to work.
But you have to have the LMSW to sit for the LCSW.
You have, yes, you have to do that to even do the supervised work experience.
Oh, okay.
You have to get the one license before you can even go down the path towards the other.
Oh, so if you weren't seeking supervision in an LCSW.
Correct. The price on the exam for the master level is $230. The practice exams, if people have test anxiety, I'd recommend. It's all done by on computer. The practice exams are timed. There's 150 questions on them, and the questions are expired test questions. So you're going to see the same types questions that you would see on the regular exam that you take. How do I go back? The other one?
Or you could
Nope.
just read. Right click.
Right click.
Read. That's okay. I can just ask you the last.
What was your question?
The $85 one, oh, that was for the practice.
That's the practice exam. And you have to register for the full exam and pay the $230 before you can take the practice exam, which I don't understand. I don't know why you can't do that.
Is that unlimited or is it just one time?
On which one?
The practice.
They give you access to it for 30 days.
So that regenerate, can you take it?
The practice one, those are questions for ASWB. I think they just give you one shot at it. And I think you log in and I think you can log in and off, but you're just working your way down. You can't go back to those questions.
You know, you get to see the results, so you know what you missed.
It gives you the rationale for the answers. Tests are 170 questions, 20 of which are practice. They're in development stages. They won't count. You need to have a set number of questions right. It's not and each question is weighted. So if you take the exam today and then turn around and take it tomorrow, you're going to get a different test. You might need to have 97 questions out of the 150 right to pass. You might need 107 right out of the 150 to pass. So, but it's all electronic. You go in and once you punch submit, then it tells you if you passed. And then it takes us about a week to get the official results on it.
So the 20, I think you just said this, but I don't think I know. The 20 that are in the developmental phase.
Mm-hmm. You won't know which 20 they are.
Let's say I got all 20 of those right.
Doesn't matter. They don't count.
They don't count. They are specific 20 questions. Okay.
Yeah. You have 4 hours to take it. As I said earlier, we all use the same on that. When you apply with us for the license initially, we approve you to sit for the exam and send you a letter approving you to sit for it. We send an email to the ASWB giving them your name and social security number. Then you contact ASWB, pay them the money. They'll give you like a PIN to use and contact information for the vendor that's administering the exams. And then you set up your appointment where you're going to take it. There's, I think, 5 or 6 locations here in the state. There's one in Columbia, 2 in KC, 2 in St. Louis, 1 in Springfield, and I think 1 down in Cape. So, and you set the appointment time for when you can take it. So if you're in a hurry to take it and one place says they can't take you for 3 weeks or something, then call around. Yes.
How long does it usually take for committees to review once they have everything they need to make a decision?
Takes my office about 2 days. It's just gathering it. But yeah, once it hits, 2, maybe 3 days. I get a lot of questions on this. They do have English as a second language. If there's ADHD or something, I need a physician's. Actually, it all goes through ASWB, and they'll say that somebody's asked for special accommodations or something. They send me a letter, and then I generally approve it, unless somebody's trying to fudge on the 90-day wait period. You can ask out of the 90-day wait period if you fail. It's got to be for reasons that you've got a job that, VA gives people a set amount of time to get licensed. So when that time frame's coming up, that would be an excuse to take it early and not have to wait a full 90 days. If you fail it by more than 5 questions, that can't be done, period. So you've got to miss 5 or fewer to be able to ask for the 90-day waiver. But you all are going to pass first time, right? No, we don't care about that. On the ASWB's website, there's a much more exploded picture of this on what's in the percentages and what's under each division, whatever, chapter of it. It doesn't look like they printed you all handouts of this thing, so I'll let you write these down. But you can go on their website and it opens it up quite a bit. You can just go on there and play around if you're an exam candidate and just wander around. It's kind of confusing on some of aspects of their website, but you can find out exam content in there. I'm not a social worker, so these are areas I'm not familiar with, so don't ask me any questions on them.
And you said it's the ASWB website that has the more.
ASWB.org.
Okay.
For those who want to go into the clinical path, first you have to get the license. Then you find a job, hopefully, and a lot of employers will offer supervision as a benefit. I have seen some supervisors charge over $100 an hour. You got to meet 1 hour a week, or it can be combined up to 4 hours every 4 weeks if you'd like. But there's forms on our website. It's all under forms. We need the contract, the registration. The supervisors have to take a supervisor training course, and we either need that, or if they've been supervising, we need, there's a 3-hour update of continuing education they have to do every renewal period. And then we need something on the letterhead from the employer stating that you've got a job. And there's a one-time $25 fee. The important thing on that's the last sentence. We send out letters approving every change. If you don't get a letter from us, if you're going down this path, you need to call us, because odds are something is missing, or it was never sent in. I've had a lot of people mad at me and in tears because they didn't get something registered. They didn't change their supervision or register it, and they've lost one of them over a year of supervised work experience. Anyway, we acknowledge everything on that. So I think a couple of times there have been lawsuits on it because the supervisee thought the supervisor was sending it in and vice versa, and it never came. We have some new rules in effect. Went into effect March 30 of this year. The rule process has been a long endeavor for quite a while. We filed rules in December of 2013 to allow people to take the clinical exam after completion of 3/4 of the supervised work experience, and it's taken until March 30 of this year to get the rules through. But you still have to go ahead and complete the required hours and months, but this allows people, the thinking is that if somebody's paying for their clinical supervision, this way they can, when it's actually over, they don't have to go another 2-3 weeks to send the paperwork in and schedule the exam, sometimes costing $300 to $400. This will let them, once they've completed, we would just issue the license. You have to get fingerprinted again for that. And again, we notify ASWB and you take that exam. And again, there's a practice exam available at that level as well. We give another one of our new rules. We used to have to kind of hold applications open forever. We dirty little secret is we were ending process after a year or two, but we give you 2 years to take the exam now. So if you've applied and not passed it within 2 years, we're going to end process. You could turn around and reapply. There is no limit on the number of times you can test in Missouri. Some states put a limit of 3. We don't, but we put a time limit on it. No questions by anybody? Okay. We do the same thing with the supervision. Once you start supervision, you have 4 years to get licensed. After that, we're going to end process. Years ago, we had people in our system for 10 years under supervision, and some could never pass the exam. They were practicing clinically at that time, which was scary, because they didn't, way back when, they didn't have to get the master social worker license first. They just had to graduate, and then they could do it. We do require continuing ed. We prorate the first year or the first renewal. We issue a license. All of our licenses expire on September 30 of a given year. So we prorate them. We don't issue any licenses for less than a year. So it's, our applications say the fee's $30 between this period and this period, or $45 or $60. And it's all when you first apply. We also prorate the continuing education that's required on the initial license. If you go for the clinical license, that starts all over again as well. We'll prorate the CE for that. The continuing education that you accumulate as a master social worker, and then if you get licensed as a clinical social worker, won't carry forward. But we do prorate it again. So we do need 3 hours of ethics, regardless of the total number of hours you have. And no more than half of the hours can be correspondence courses. Basically online courses where you download some material and perhaps take a quiz. We count online webinars as face-to-face. And this ethics can be live or it can be correspondence. We don't care there. If we audit you, we're going to go to the most recent renewal period. So keep those. Yes. It's a 2-year license. The first one's going to be a year, might be 16 months, whatever. The first one we're going to prorate, but after that, they all expire on September 30. We send notices out first week of July to the address we have on file, and should you move, you just go to our website and update your address. Most people can renew online. They'll get a postcard. We've been doing audits of CE though, so some people get a little letter saying to send in copies of their CE, and some of those we do prior to renewing it. Others might get audited after the fact. So the committee frowns on people checking the box that says I have completed all my CE, and then when we audit them after the fact, they send in that they've done 10 hours or something, and they did 20 hours late, and they think all's well, but they're wrong. This is pretty basic. We have a direct link on our website to the continuing education rules, and you just go there on continuing education, print it. It's 3 pages. It's no big deal. Anything the university would provide would count. Anything a hospital provides or a school will count, or anything a human services agency provides will count, or basically about any association. I've been through all that, haven't I? Any questions on all this?
For the first year
Mhm.
that you have it, after we graduate,
Mhm.
do we still have to do this in that first year or just in the 2 years?
Once your license is issued, so let's say you get a license in June, you're going to need, I don't know, 20 hours. I'm guessing there, but there's a chart on our in the continuing education rule that tell you how many hours you need. So you have from the date your license was issued until September 30 of. So if yours is issued this June, it'd be September 30 of 2019. We'll send the renewals out first week of July, and we give you 3 months to renew. So you can renew at any time then after you get that. And then the next license would be a full 2 year from September 30 or from October 1 to September 30. Don't wait too late to renew though. If it's postmarked, it's going to cost you another $58. Employers do check our website. Our website only shows people with active licenses. So if your employer checks it on October 1 and you didn't send it in until September 30, it's probably not going to show up as active until about October 5, and they'll probably tell you to go home with no pay. And then if you wait till December, you're going to have to give us proof of 30 hours from the previous renewal, because this is an automatic audit when you hit this point. And we're going to want a couple hours for October, 1 or 2 for November, and 1 or 2 for December. So we're going to need 33, 34 hours of CE, plus $117 on top of your renewal fee. Questions on any of this? These are different ways to get continuing ed. I wish we didn't have to have the license number to do the jurisprudence exam we have online, because I think it's a wonderful tool for people to at least go in and familiarize yourself with our rules and statutes, but you have to have a license to do that. It's free. But these are different ways to get continuing ed.
Is that on your website,
This
Is information on the website?
Yeah, well, this is all in the rules. I just took it out of the rules. It also lists a bunch of different, well, I've got this list here. So these are various associations, and it's not limited to these. That if it's approved by any of these groups, we're fine with it. If you're in Columbia, KC, St. Louis, there's all sorts of opportunities. If you live in Dexter, Missouri, or Milan, or it gets a little limited there. But it is helpful that the online, the interactive webinars count face-to-face. That does help people, but it's expensive. A lot of employers provide it, again, as a benefit, which is nice. So, but it can cost up into the thousands for the continuing ed. I'm about done. I've got a staff of 2. We answer the phone if you call. So if you do have questions, call. Or you can email us at lcsw@pr.mo.gov. No more questions? Hope you ask your...
In the years of people who've taken the exam, is there advice you would give on how to focus your studies?
If I were going into the field, I would do the practice exam because it does give you the rationale for it. You'll see the areas you might be weak in, and you can work on those. There are test exam various programs and instructors out there to help people take the test. I'm not sure how good they are. I don't get paid by ASWB, but I think I would take their practice exam. There's others out there, but at least, you know, with ASWB, it's expired questions from their exam versus something that somebody else might have made up that's kind of close. But I'd lean towards taking that. A lot of people are nervous about it. Then I think I'd seek some therapy. No, I hate to say therapy, but some ideas on getting over test anxiety, you know, breathing exercises or whatever is needed. I don't know how many of here are your all's exams now all done online where it's timed. Okay. I mean, it's a little intimidating. They are all, I don't know, did I have the slide up where it said they were all multiple choice? And you're going to see 4 answers that look pretty good. And maybe 3 look a lot better than the 4th. But then usually you get down to 2 of them, it's like, geez. Which one is it? So, but one's a little bit better than the other. So they're looking for that one that's a little bit better. It's amazing how accurate it is. When we first started offering or letting people take it faster or giving them the ESL or extended time or for whatever, I was concerned that somebody might abuse it and try to get a leg up and an advantage over somebody else taking the test. And I was assured by all sorts of information they had that there is no advantage, that people either know it or they don't. And when people take it and then fail and take it and take it, usually they're within a question on failure. Sometimes it's worse, but it's amazing how close the pattern is there on the failing. I guess that's why so many fail the second time. You know, if they miss it miserably the first time and they got a long way to make up, they're going to have to either go back to school and take some other courses, or they're going to have to really study to make up. I've seen some of them miss it by 50 questions. It's like, how'd you get an MSW if you got 55 right? You needed 110 right. How, they missed 100 questions. But on those people, and they continue to try to take it though. So I can't make them stop, but I can tell them to try to encourage them. You might look for a job where you don't have to have the L in front of the MSW, but.
You find that some students from some universities do well, and some students from particular universities.
Yes. Each university has, can't say. I have the test results for every university, and Missouri scores collectively, Missouri schools score higher than the national average for passage. So national average, I said, was in the 80%. Missouri schools have a higher percentage than that on passage for first-time takers. And I make the results available to each school. All they have to do is ask me. So I don't think MU's asked me yet, but for theirs from last year, I think they have from years past. But it breaks it down on each level, and then it first time repeat, then does the average.
Can I ask you how we fare, say, compared to what you?
You're competitive. It's a pass-fail exam, and some states, they're kind of getting away from it, but some states are still asking if somebody comes, let's say you move to another state, and they'll want to know what your test score was. And I'm like, why? You know, it's pass fail. It doesn't matter if you had a 70 or if you had a 95. But some states are still asking for that. Any other?
After we take it and it goes to the doctor's office, they tell us how many.
I don't know that. Yeah, I don't. I kind of doubt it. But I'm going back to my days when I had to take exams for securities and stuff, and it just said pass or fail. It didn't say anything other than that. If your name changes, that kind of reminds me, if you, let's say, get married or something, we send the application in, and the proctor at the exam places, they're going to check your driver's license and make sure you are who you say you are. So occasionally somebody gets married, or occasionally we'll leave a E off of a name, Ann, and anyway, they call us, or they'll not let the person take the exam because it doesn't match perfectly. So yes. Yeah, just let us know. Nothing else? Well, I'm going to get off early. Now's your chance to ask any questions you have. There are some new, I think I went through most of our new rules that are in place. We had 4 new ones hit this year, and I think I've covered all those. So we're going to start allowing a little bit of continuing ed to carry over, up to 10 hours, but that won't really apply to you all for a while. So we'll just allow people to carry it over from one renewal period to the next. However, if we do audit you, then we're going to go back to the two renewal periods then. Yes?
Is there like a form online that we fill out for, you may have touched on this, but for the continuing education, we just like describe what it was?
No, you'll get certificates.
Okay.
And the certificate have your name, the date, how many hours, who provided it. If you lose that, we will take a receipt. We're just after some sort of proof showing that you did something. I don't want to see a list that you've made up and typed up what you've done. Now, if your employer does that and it's on your employer's, let's say it's from BJC or something, and it's their HR program that details it, that's fine. We'll take that. But most of them will give you a certificate. All sorts of you now. Yeah.
Are these slides available?
They have them here. She's got it on the computer. So they can print it out for you. Yes.
The references
Mm-hmm.
on the application, do they need to be related to social work? Is it just kind of a wide?
We just say a professional. It could be a nurse, it could be a professor, it could be, we're trying to get rid of those because we don't really look at them anyway. There's another question.
Oh, you said oftentimes employers offer CEs as a benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Do they usually, is that something they generally advertise?
No, it's usually in-house.
Right, I mean, when they're interviewing, do they say, oh, this is
I don't know.
Okay.
A lot of them will, a lot of the larger hospitals and agencies will do that just as an ongoing thing for keeping their employees on top of things. So, but as far as calling it a specific benefit, I don't know. I think in the supervision, not all of them offer that. So your supervisor, is accepting full professional responsibility for your work. So, which is kind of a heavy load, you know, when as far as what they are providing. A licensed master social worker can't work in their own private practice. They can work in the private practice of a supervisor, but they can't have their own. A master social worker may, but they can't do anything clinical. So if you can work on your own, but just limited and do not do any clinical services. Otherwise, you'll be called before the committee and they'll want to know what you're doing and, you know, why you aren't licensed or whatever. Yes?
Supervision has to be in LCSW.
It has to be under an LCSW registered with us. Do they teach courses here on, let's say, substance abuse or dual relationships or Medicaid fraud?
Well, we have a course on substance abuse.
Those are our big three issues on complaints that the committee gets. Do not marry clients, please. Hey, it happens more than it should. Don't steal drugs from patients or prescriptions. I guess the biggest two are dual relationships and Medicaid fraud. We have one in the court system now where the social worker took over $500,000. So it's a big operation. So yeah, but yes, those are the big three, and I really don't understand all the ones that are marrying clients or getting involved with clients, and I've asked professors before, are you all teaching anything on this? Because we're sure seeing a lot of it. But
I think it's been pretty clear in our program, like you would never see a client, even if you saw them 10 years ago. Never see them.
well, any other questions? I'll assume you know it all then, and none of you ever, I'll get a list I'll look for in the future, make sure none of you get, that everybody's doing all this perfect. And I'll let you go then. I guess class dismissed. Yes.
What happens if they sign up with a supervisor for 3,000 hours? Transfer hours from that supervisor?
Yes. If you move to another state, those hours might transfer there as well. But we have a form called a change of status. If there's a change of the supervisor or the setting, and you need to fill that out and have it sent in and approved. But if you know you're going to be leaving, yeah, send it in beforehand. But that's usually not a problem. And if there's gaps, let's say you start off and then you take off a year, have a baby and take off a year. When you think you're done, we look back over that 48-month period, if it stretches to that, but we will look back 48 months, and we're looking for 24 months of that and the 3,000 hours in that. So there can be, you can work a year, skip a year, and then work another year, and then that'd be your 24 months and your hours would be fine. So any gaps, some of you might go into school social work, then you're going to have a 3-month gap roughly every summer. And so then you just add the 3 months onto the back end.
Does your supervisor be in your agency?
No, they can be outside of it. It can be done by Skype if need be. You just have to make sure confidentiality is maintained. Yes.
Question, and this might be a silly question, but say if you're working as like a signature or not super comfortable, or how do you get hours for that? Or
We put a lot on the supervisor. We've turned down some of late where people have been really kind of in HR, wanting those hours to count, and it's what I throw back on the supervisor is that it's up to them to make sure you're trained to handle any type of clinical services. So if that's direct client contact, yes, you need some of that. If it's case management, sure. If it's diagnosis, you need some of that. So I just tell them to make sure that that when you're done, that you are competent and able to go out in the world and practice in any of those. So, but we do have some that, well, we just rely on the supervisor for it. There's a lot of them come through that are, you know, we kind of scratch our head and go, is this, how much of this is clinical? And maybe you're working 40 hours a week, but maybe 30 of that could be called clinical and the other 10 might not be. So then your supervisor would note that on what we have, one of our forms called an attestation form, and they would note it on that.
I've seen some people with credentials that are LCSW.
That's out of Kansas. They just license independent. There's over 50 acronyms for social workers. Yeah, it's like, okay, what test did they take? You know, I don't care whatever you want to call them. It's which exam did they have to take, and did they have to do supervision? Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
I might see some of you next year, right?
Yes.